Welcome to Don't Chuck It Up, the podcast where we help students and families navigate the wild journey of the college search and applying to colleges without breaking a sweat. I'm your host, Chuck, and today we're talking about fine and performing visual arts recruitment and what you need to do to be ready. I think the biggest thing that I always start with when I meet with a student is trying to calibrate what level of study they actually want to do in the fine and performing visual arts. So we're talking about music, dance, theater, studio art, anything like that. Because for many students, they really are passionate about these arts in high school. And for many of them, and that's their safe space. And that's where they've really enjoyed their high school experience. They go, oh, I want to do this. And as someone who decided that I went off and majored in music in college, I will tell you that studying music studying fine and performing arts at the collegiate level is very different than high school. Because high school, you just kind of go in for a class and you have a grand old time, and then you have a great time at concerts or presentations or art exhibits, whatever it may be. Studying it is a whole different ballpark. So I always try and gauge first what level of study they want to do. And the least intensive in college is really doing extracurricular. And most colleges and universities allow for students to participate in extracurricular music, art, dance, theater, things like that. I think the hard part is when you're looking for those experiences, a lot of students look under the student organizations, and there are some student organizations that might be music, art, or dance or theater connected, but many of them are actually listed on the different department websites. So you have to go to the theater department website or the music department website and look for the ensembles and the student opportunities. So that's really common, and that's probably the largest section of students. It's similar to athletics, where the most amount of students in athletics are doing intramural sports. That's the thing. So extracurricular fine and performing arts is kind of the equivalent of intramural sports if you're talking athletics. After that would be if a student wants to minor in the fine and performing arts, and that is really possible, especially at a liberal arts college or even at a large public institution. The hard part is that you have to find out if they can minor in it and then have a major in a completely different area. That might be difficult. So I had a student once that wanted to do chemical engineering and minor in theater. And was it possible? Sure. But those two programs had very different schedules, and it was going to be hard to do the scheduling that way. So a minor is typically 5 to 7 classes. Some colleges still require students to do either a portfolio submission or an audition if they want to minor, but that's really rare. It's mainly about students who want to just continue to participating. A minor for like music or art, they're going to be doing things like music theory, ear training, sight singing, history, classes that are really academic. And I think students think, oh, I'm just going to be able to perform or practice or just do my craft. And when you start getting into the academics of it, you're taking the classes, and sometimes students are not that excited about it. So if they're interested in a minor, I always have them look up what the minor classes are and say, okay, does this sound like something you want to do? And sometimes they say yes, sometimes they say no. The next level above that would be major, and there's a wide variety of major options. The easiest one for students to get involved in would be a Bachelor of Arts, or sometimes even a Bachelor of Science in a fine and performing art. These are often times an audition-based or portfolio-based program, although not always. A lot of BA programs allow students to enter as a non-auditioning student. They will probably have to pass an audition later on. So at the end of first year or at the end of second year, they may have to do a qualifying portfolio or audition. But some programs do require an audition as part of the application process. I wish there was a way for me to say, like, all of these colleges required and all of these don't. There isn't a way. You have to look up each college, which is very annoying. The other more intense majors are either a Bachelor of Fine Arts or a Bachelor of Music degree, so the BFA or the B Music degrees. These are going to be where the student is doing at least 2/3 of their work in that particular performing art, and then a 1/3 in either general education or other requirements that the college requires. And almost all Bachelor of Music or Bachelor of Fine Art programs require either an audition or a portfolio at the time of application. There are a few that don't require auditions, but that's going to be really in the minority. If it is a Bachelor of Music program or a Bachelor of Fine Arts program, regardless of what the major is, there's likely going to either be an audition or a portfolio. So those are kind of the intense levels from extracurricular up to major. The thing for portfolios and auditions, it really is going to depend also on the colleges. Some of them will do a pre-screen, so the most intense and the most selective Bachelor of Music schools or Bachelor of Fine Arts colleges will do some type of a pre-screen. So this is really common for instruments like violin, vocal performance, especially for women, musical theater, especially for women, and some of the more popular instruments, sometimes cello will require it. And the pre-screen really is a virtual audition. They're going to put together either a portfolio or recorded music and then upload it to a platform that sends it off to the college. A lot of colleges use a program called Accepted, but they're going to do a pre-screen. And then for musical theater, it might be a vocal pre-screen, an acting pre-screen, and a dance pre-screen. It really depends upon the college. And then once they go through the pre-screen, then they are invited saying, hey, we really like your pre-screen. We'd love to have you come do a full audition. So for many students who are wanting to do those more academically intense programs, like a Bachelor of Music or a Bachelor of Fine Arts, they really need to start early because those pre-screens can be due as early as October 1 or November 1, depending upon the college. For the normal auditions and portfolios, I wish there was, again, a commonality. Sometimes the auditions are available in November or December. Others, for the majority of them, the auditions are going to be not until January, February, or even March. The hardest part with fine arts recruitment and the application process is that it is later. A lot of the students who are not doing fine or performing arts can apply early action. They can get their information back early and be on their way. Whereas if they are doing some type of fine and performing art, the audition process is going to be much, much later. So that can always be a challenge for students because they're like, oh, I want to be able to, get my process done early and then I'll be fine. And I'm like, well, it's not early. It's a long marathon. The hardest part also for fine and performing visual arts is those decisions don't come out until late March or early April. And then they have to figure out where they're going by May 1st. So it's really, really fast turnaround. Most students for fine and performing arts are applying regular decision. That is the common audition or application deadline for fine and performing arts. There are some colleges that allow for early action in the fine and performing arts, but it's not very common. An early decision is very rare. There are a few colleges that allow for early decision, but that is not common at all because of the audition and application process. We may see a shift in that as colleges are looking to recruit students earlier and faster. We may start seeing more fine and performing arts programs offering early action and early decision. That's kind of one of the areas that I'm looking at and curious about. The vast majority of the colleges are test optional, especially for the fine and performing visual arts. Several of them, the mothership college might require colleges, but the College of Fine and Performing Arts or the College of Dance or the College of Music might say, nope, we don't require test scores. So then the overall university would have their benchmark, and then the College of Dance or Music might say, nope, we don't require the test scores and we won't look at them. To prepare for portfolios or auditions, students really need to look at the guidelines of each college. I recommend students create some type of a spreadsheet where they list all the colleges that they are applying to, what particular major or program they are looking at, and then what are the specific audition requirements or portfolio requirements for each program. Many of them are similar, so if a student is auditioning on violin or cello or oboe, the audition requirements are fairly much the same across all of the various music schools. There might be a couple nuances, but the great part is that once they start recording this material, they can use it for multiple colleges. My biggest piece of advice for students is that they always are like, I need to learn the hardest piece for my instrument. Absolutely not. They just need to be able to perform well whatever they are choosing to perform. So when I auditioned, I went back to some of the stuff in my 9th and 10th grade and kind of brought it back and redid it. And I think that that made it easier versus, oh, I have to learn a brand new piece and have very difficult audition material. The professors, and it is really the professors who are reviewing the auditions, they are not looking for Joshua Bell or Yo-Yo Ma type talent. They are really looking for, is this student have solid music skills now? And do we believe they are teachable? In other words, do we believe that if they come to our program, we are going to be able to help them out and improve their skills? They do not have to be a virtuoso savant on their instrument in order to get admitted. I always recommend for students who are thinking of majoring in the fine or performing arts, again, theater, dance, music, or art, that they should be collecting their things along the way in high school. Like, keep a record of what pieces they're doing or what pieces they're creating, and that will help when they get to the portfolio time. The portfolio really should be worked on the summer before senior years, when you start kind of looking at the audition requirements and putting everything together for what they need. I agree with you that I think a student should work with their closest teacher. So that could be someone at school, that could be someone that they're taking private lessons from, but someone who is within this field, who understands the pieces and the material and be able to read audition requirements and go, oh, I know what those are. They should get that type of feedback from some type of artist or professional, or someone like me who has a musical background and can, be able to help students navigate those audition requirements, because I've been there. I've listened to thousands of them. But if you're not experienced in creating portfolios or audition requirements, feel free and tag in a friend or have them talk to their teacher. Don't feel like you need to make that judgment call as to what they should be doing. That should be something that is either on the student or on the private teacher. Also, many of the colleges require a letter of recommendation from a teacher directly in that craft. So again, it could be a high school teacher, ensemble director, it could be a private instructor or a private ensemble, but it needs to be someone who has experience within that fine and performing art to be able to write a letter of recommendation for the student. That is very common, especially amongst Bachelor of Music and Bachelor of Fine Arts programs. The other thing that stinks about auditions and portfolios, there's not a common way that the colleges all accept them. Each college will give, a lot of times they have to submit their application for admission first, and then they upload their portfolio or stuff into their application portal. Some colleges have a separate app that they have to do and then upload their material that way. Others say, create a YouTube link and send us the YouTube link. Again, I wish there was common rules around it. We were trying to create some common rules around this before COVID, and then COVID happened, and I think a lot of those have been abandoned. There are some for musical theater that have the unified auditions, where that brings over 30 colleges together in the same city, so a student can sign up for a unified audition and then be heard by over 30 different programs. Many of them are very famous programs. Others are colleges that most students have never heard of that have really solid programs. They're just not a popular household name. Theater, dance, and music are all, and I would say art as well, are now very decentralized. Before, there was this feeling like I have to go to LA or I have to go to New York in order to be successful. That is not true at all. Most major metros have a solid fine and performing arts scene, and students can get involved in their craft within most of the major cities in the United States. So, for example, I'm in Wisconsin. Milwaukee has a very vibrant fine and performing arts scene, and students can get internships and experiences outside of the colleges right in the city of Milwaukee. They're like, oh, I have to go to Chicago. Well, I mean, you can, but there's opportunities right within Milwaukee for music, dance, theater, even musical theater or art. Yeah, I'm trying to debunk the whole, I have to go to college in NYU or I have to go to college in Los Angeles. Not true at all. In fact, when we were visiting UNC Wilmington, they told us about their big sound stages and movie recording stages that are available in Wilmington, North Carolina, which I don't think anyone ever thinks of as a movie city. But yeah, you can go to a lot of different places. The hard part also for fine and performing arts is that the students have to find not only a college match and the overall college or university environment, but they also need to investigate the faculty and the resources that are available to those students. So a student may fall in love with a college, but then maybe the fine and performing arts area is not really what they need. So if they're doing art and they want to study sculpture, they need to make sure that there are sculpture facilities in the art department if they're going to go there. So they may have to do some investigative research on that. And I also encourage students to reach out to the faculty, especially if there's only one professor that teaches it. So if someone's going to major in French horn and there's only one French horn professor, they should reach out to that person and see if there's going to be a good fit. You don't want to be stuck at a school and be stuck with the same professor for 4 years and not like them. So many times colleges and universities will allow students to either observe a lesson, and that could be as early as junior year, or they can go and watch a lesson and even take a sample lesson if they are going to be at the college. So that's another great way to learn about the fine and performing arts is connect with the faculty and go visit them and check out a lesson while you're there. The auditions and portfolios are also the auditions and portfolios for almost all of the scholarships. So they will be reviewed by admissions for any merit-based scholarships, and then they will be reviewed by the faculty for any fine or performing visual arts scholarships. Some colleges stack those and they can get both. Other colleges will give you the higher of the two. So if you get a higher fine and performing arts scholarship, then the admission scholarship is not awarded or vice versa. So the nice part about the audition is that it is both for admission and for most scholarship opportunities. From my friends who work in the professional industry, no one cares the name of the school that you go to. No one. I've yet to have someone in the fine and performing arts say, oh, you have to go to this college in order to be recognized in the fine and performing arts world. It's more about who you've studied with, what type of experiences you've had, how you've built up your fine and performing arts resume while you are in college. So what are your summer experiences? What type of opportunities are you getting both at the college and in the community? Does not matter the name of the school that you went to. If you ever go to a Broadway show, I highly encourage picking up the playbill and then looking at the actors and where they went to college. There's no consistency. There's really not. They're from all over. And sometimes from colleges I've never heard of. And I'm like, oh, where'd they go? Like, what are they doing? I've never heard of that school. And then I'll look it up and I'm like, oh, wow, they have a nice little fine and performing arts department. I always just recommend trying to assess the students' ability and what they're interested in doing first, because they may say they want to major in something and they may not actually. They may think they want to, but then once they see what a full major entails, they may be like, nope, I'm going to do it extracurricular wise, or I'm going to do it on the side through a student organization, or even through the community. There's some colleges that don't have a very robust fine and performing arts department, but they're located in a city that does. So I've had students go to a college and then get connected to the local art community or a local dance studio or even a local theater troupe and be able to have those experiences outside of college if they're doing it more at the extracurricular level. That's not going to work for a major, but it's a way for a student who might want to be at an engineering college and that engineering college doesn't have much for fine and performing arts, that there might be something in the city that they could do and really round out their experience while they are in college. And it might be also more flexible with their schedule. Yeah, the hardest part is there's just so many more T's to cross and I's to dot when you're planning to major in the fine and performing arts, and a lot of students start too late. So I really wish students who are thinking of majoring in art, music, dance, theater, something in those areas, musical theater, that they really start planning and thinking about it as a junior, and sometimes even as a sophomore if they're going for one of the hyper selective programs. There's a lot of kids that want to major in musical theater, and you really need to be a triple threat for the top programs. So you need to have musical skills, theater skills, and dance skills. And a lot of students have two of the three. I have to remind my boys that musical theater requires dance. So You got to go take some dance classes. Yes, ballet is dance. Yes, tap and jazz are dance. You need to have experience in those if you want to be more employable. In the areas of vocal music, so music performance and musical theater, the women outnumber the men by a lot. And typically a musical theater program, and a lot of times a vocal performance program, a top program will only bring in 15 to 25 students. So now you have to do the breakdown. So let's say it's 20, nice round number. That means they typically need 10 boys and 10 girls for those 20 slots because they want to keep everything as balanced as possible. When I was doing Conservatory of Music admissions, we would have anywhere from 30 to 40 women auditioning for one spot, where for guys, we would have 3 to 5 guys auditioning for one spot. Just the volume is much bigger for women. So oftentimes colleges will pre-screen the women so that they are only inviting the top students for the full audition. Now, other programs might just pre-screen all of the vocalists, even though the boys already have an advantage because there's a smaller number of them. Just to be fair, they'll pre-screen everybody, but they're really likely targeting the women because there's just so many. So that's the always challenge. So yeah, if you're a dude who wants to be in the fine and performing arts, you have an up. If you're playing an unusual instrument, so there's a lot of colleges that need things like tubas and euphoniums and double basses and bassoons, and most colleges don't get enough auditions on some of those more unique instruments. You see a lot of the violin, viola, cello, flute, but there's quite a few of the instruments within the orchestra and within the band that there's not enough auditions. There were years that we literally were short auditions for all the spots that we needed. So we had to put a call out to private music teachers and say, hey, do you have anyone looking to audition in bassoon? Because we are short on bassoons. Yeah, in vocal music, in theater and in vocal music, boys have an advantage. It could be, so there are college counselors that just do fine and performing arts, and that's all they really focus on. And they actually will actively reach out to the music and conservatory programs and say, hey, what are you looking at replacing? Who are you looking for in the future to help try and make a better match? I always encourage my students is if they're going to meet with a professor to ask, like, do you plan on, recruiting a bunch more students for your particular instrument or not? Or are you full? Sometimes colleges over-recruit in a certain instrument and they may not recruit as many for the next year. I would hesitant to say that they recruit zero, but they would recruit far less students than what a normal class would be. But for certain instruments, they may only admit 2 or 3 of an instrument because they're trying to bring in just one new first-year student, and they know that their yield is about 30%. So they may only admit 3 students, even though they've had 20 or 30 audition. Most music programs keep a wait list on the instruments in case something were to go awry and they don't have enough students putting down a deposit. They will, as they go through auditions, they will rank those students behind the scenes. You never know what it is, but they will rank the students so that if they need to go deeper into their pool, they will, in order to make sure that they have a full pool. They have to bring in their numbers every year. Fine and Performing Arts needs to have all of those students in order to have the ensembles, in order to have the productions, in order to have an art program. They need to have those students, so they may go deeper into their wait list if they're not getting enough students putting down deposits. But again, a student might be waiting until May, sometimes even June, to hearing if they got off of a wait list because it's a competitive program. Literally one student's decision, yes or no, can change the placeholders for the rest of the students that are looking at that college. So I always tell students, if you're not planning to go somewhere, tell them so they can offer your spot to somebody else. Thanks for watching. That's all the time we have for today, but fear not, we will be back next week with more tips and tricks to help you navigate the college search and application process like a boss. Until then, remember, don't chuck it up.